Thanks very much, Christian, for joining us. I'm very pleased to be speaking to the CEO of SAP, Christian Klein, to think about how technology can help us cope with the pandemic challenges that we've all been facing of late. The pandemic making a clear case then for a more collaborative, distributed way of working then, perhaps, Christian, and I'm sure you've seen that in your conversations with customers. So let's start our conversation then today with thinking about how the pandemic shaped those cloud ambitions of your customers.
Yeah, so thanks, Anna, for having me. Yes, indeed. I mean, in the post-pandemic world, definitely now what we are seeing is that the move to the cloud clearly accelerated. So when you look at the biggest challenges of our customers worldwide, they had to redefine in the pandemic all of their business models. They had to also build resilient supply chains. They have to enable the future of work, which is different to the pre-pandemic world. And this is what they are doing by moving into the cloud, by having more agility, a more agile system landscape, but also by driving a business transformation together with SAP.
Okay, and can I ask you how they view the cloud? Do they view it as just a different way of doing the things they always did? Or do they see it as a way that they can use technology to really gain some advantage, allowing them to do new things, perhaps?
Yeah, so actually, the customers embracing the cloud, first of all, to optimize system operations, to reduce the total cost of ownership of running their system. That's clearly an argument. Second is to consume innovations at a much faster pace, which is needed when you're seeing how fast also the businesses are changing out there. Clearly, cybersecurity is another argument that a lot of customers saying, hey, you're doing so much around cybersecurity. We feel that it's much better to migrate our data into the SAP cloud. But a technical migration is not enough. Changing a business model, building resilient supply chains, building a sustainable enterprise also means you have to change how your enterprise runs. And this is with our new offering, RISE with SAP. Yes, we technically migrate the customers to the cloud, but we want to go one step further. We want to change how they run their enterprises. We are using best practices from our over 400,000 customers and tell them, look, this is how your business model is changing in the digital age. This is actually how others are standardizing business processes. This is how you are building a resilient supply chain in the business network. And that is, of course, the biggest value add to change how an enterprise runs.
Clearly, the pandemic has changed a lot about the way that we work. And I wonder if it has made some businesses more accepting of jumping into something new, of taking new risks. I mean, with a cloud relationship, with a cloud service provider, there's a lot of trust involved. I mean, there's a contract, but there's also a lot of trust. Do you find that the pandemic has enabled businesses that maybe were hesitant to take a leap?
Absolutely, especially take the public sector, or here in Germany, actually. We were not so much advanced by moving, our systems, our services to the cloud. And now in the pandemic, with the Corona Warn app for the tracing of the virus we developed, everything moved to the cloud. We also developed new apps for helping infected people in a much faster way, like, allocating them to the intensive care in a much faster way, also with cloud solutions by SAP. And so you see the acceptance of the cloud increased a lot, especially also in industries which were not so much advanced in the cloud, in pre-pandemic times.
And how far through that process of migrating to the cloud, how far through that do you think we are, Christian?
In many ways of the company, especially in the enterprises where with less complexity. I mean, take all the HR processes, the processes in sales, in marketing, will have less complexity compared to processes in manufacturing, in logistics. These are the LOBs who already moved almost completely to the cloud. But there are others. I already mentioned them: manufacturing, logistics, finance, all the ERP-related business processes who have per se a higher complexity. They are now moving in the cloud to the cloud with a much faster pace. And this is, of course, what we are now doing together with our customers, and they are responding really well to that.
So there'll be the earlier adopters and then the later adopters. There are, in this space, of course, some businesses that are sort of pure play cloud providers. You do other things as well at SAP. How do you fend off that kind of competition then, Christian?
yeah, we have to play out our strengths. Yes, we have the broadest portfolio in the market, but it's very important that you actually focus on two things. When you have the world's leading B2B commerce platform, so we want Daimler Commerce, we want commerce for Bayer and others, it's very important that we then say, okay, you now have a great commerce platform, we can personalize your offerings, but we can also connect the supply chain to it. So we can manage demand and supply real time. We can also personalize the supply chain because it's one end-to-end value chain. And if the data models fit together, if you can track and trace everything what is happening in your digital channel, this is a clear advantage what we are delivering out of the box. Needless to say, what we are doing in procurement together with finance, HR, all the core processes, you have to be an integrated company. This is where we put our assets together for total workforce management, for digital payments, where we drive automation of an enterprise. And there we bring the power of our portfolio together. But it's also very important. The world of software is big. And so it's also important to partner. So we have in the meantime over 2,000 partner apps on our platform to extend our core applications, to give them more industry flavor, to allow our customers to build and connect seamlessly with other solutions, which drives that digital transformation. So it's both, it's developing and be innovative in our own product portfolio, but also embracing the partners and the ecosystem out there.
How do you manage those partner relationships, Christian, when clearly you're going to be trying to compete with some of those providers because you want the business for yourselves at the same time as recognizing you need to offer these sort of industry standard products? So how do you manage that sort of frenemy relationship?
Yeah, I give you an example. With Siemens, we launched a very important and strategic partnership around Industry 4.0. Siemens is the world's leader in orchestrating the shop floor, the factory. But it's very important for the Industry 4.0 use cases, like take predictive maintenance, which is very important, a very important capability for manufacturing companies. That comes now out of the box. When you're using SAP, ERP, supply chain, when you're using Siemens Teamcenter, we build this integration out of the box. And clearly, we are winning by leading together. With Microsoft, we are embedding now Microsoft Teams. We talked about the future of work. Collaboration is key. Now, when you're using SAP software for HR, for recruiting, for procurement, for supplier negotiations, Teams comes seamlessly embedded. And again, this is a differentiating capability for both sides, for the world's leading collaboration platform, combined with the world's leading business applications. And these are just two examples. It's just very important that you clearly define the market, the white spot, and then have a very attractive commercial model. Obviously, you need to also build strong product integration so that you can also show credible value to our customers. And this is how it works, yes.
Let's broaden the conversation. We started talking about cloud, but clearly SAP is about other things as well. You've launched SAP Ariba, which I understand is a network that allows SAP customers to try and manage supply chain issues amongst each other. What kind of reception has that received? Why is that necessary?
Fantastic. Actually, after the outbreak of the pandemic, you wouldn't imagine how many CEOs reached out and said, Christian, I'm really facing so much restrictions in my supply chain now. Country lockdowns, which suppliers can still deliver, which manufacturers can still produce in time. How can I, get the ingredients for the vaccine from Asia to the US, which logistic providers can still deliver? And that was the point, actually, when we said, hey, yes, we have the supplier network by Ariba, but we also have a logistics network. We also have the manufacturers. They're all running SAP. And so what we did, we brought them together in a business network, in the meantime, with over 8 million companies. So it's actually, you can see it as the LinkedIn for the B2B businesses. And now, I give you one example with Catena X. We said for the automotive industry, all the large car companies are now in, together with their suppliers, their end-tier suppliers, with their manufacturers, with the logistic provider. And now they can track and trace real-time the whole supply chain. So when there are changes in the market, they can react much faster. They can optimize inventory. They can react much faster to certain quality issues in a car. And so the use cases are so immense. And overall, you are having just such a, much more resilient supply chain. And this is the power of coming together in a network.
Yeah.
And we are really making great progress there.
So, Christian, do you sense that just in time, as a management strategy, knowing everything you know about your customers and how they cope with supply chain issues, has just in time as a concept, has it had its day, and now we work to a just in case kind of supply chain methodology? What are you seeing amongst your customer base?
You're absolutely right. I mean, what I'm seeing also in many industries like retail, but also take healthcare and others, we are moving again more and more into a personalized supply chain. So what consumers expect is oftentimes next time delivery. They want to configure a product together with services in a very personalized way. So the supply chains have to change. Look at the geopolitical tensions we are having across the globe. Also, that will have an impact, or already has an impact, on the supply chain. So yes, we are seeing that. We are already working with many of our customers on rebuilding the supply chains, getting them onto the business network to have a more personalized, but also a more resilient supply chain at the end of the day.
And what are you hearing at the coalface, if it were, from your customers about supply chain issues? Do you sense that we're past the worst? I mean, using the tools that you've mentioned to try and connect companies with companies that can really supply. Do you feel like we're through the worst of it?
Not yet, and it really depends. I, of course, see, the most prominent example, what we always hear, is the semiconductor, as we need semiconductors, much more in all kinds of products and facilities we are constructing these days. And there, of course, I see here in Europe, we are building now fabrics, and I'm sure at a certain point of time we will overcome the shortage on semiconductor, probably, hopefully next year at some point of time. But there are other shortages. Magnesium is one, shortages in workforce. We also see shortages with some other raw materials. So I think this issue is broader than many believe. And this is why just also, once again, it's so important to build these resilient supply chains, to get this track and traceability, because today the supply chains are too much dependent on these one-to-one connections, and these one-to-one connections, they just take too long to cope with this, the change in demand and supply.
And do you fear that the Omicron variant might be something that worsens that situation further?
Let's see. I'm listening to the different experts across the world. You hear different opinions, how effective the vaccine is against this new variant. I'm optimistic. So from what I'm hearing is actually that when you are vaccinated and when you have the booster, it's a very high likelihood that at least the impact is not so severe. And so what I tell our people is, please get vaccinated. It's so important. It's for you important, but it's also, honestly, you also have a responsibility for the company, for your colleagues, for your friends, for your family. So I guess vaccination is key. And then I would say we won't see such a severe impact. But again, I'm not an expert in this field.
One of we've talked a bit about cloud services, and we've clearly seen a boom in that with the pandemic. Supply chain issues have been a real topic of conversation. Business travel. Now, one of the upside of having all of this technology that enables us to collaborate over long distances means that maybe some people won't feel the need to travel as much as they once did, Christian. And of course, your business also offers tools around travel. So you have an interesting insight into this area. You recently said that we had seen a slight recovery in use of business travel products. Where do we stand now? What are you seeing now?
Yeah, definitely we saw in Q3 already an uptick in business travel. As with Concur, we are by far the market leader. And also talking to the airline industry, I see there is a comeback of business travel, not around the globe, but definitely we saw an uptick, especially in North America. We saw an uptick definitely in certain parts of Asia. And going forward, obviously, we are aware that probably we will not go back to the level we had before the pandemic when it comes to business travel. But definitely, as you know as well, sometimes it's so important also to be together, to network, to get the customers, the partners together, to talk about these big transformations live. So I would say we will continue to see now a recovery. Of course, it all depends how the new variant will also impact our society.
Yeah, a lot of unknowns. I suppose, where would you expect, how much do you think structurally we've shifted our need to travel? Where would you expect it to recover back to? I mean, perhaps not 2019 levels.
I would say, look, when we are listening to our customers, and this is why we also made sustainability now a key business dimension for all of our products. Yeah, so we are embedding now the carbon footprint, water consumption, other ESG components like diversity and inclusion. They're becoming now a de facto standard of our data model, so that we can help to drive productivity, help to drive growth, but also sustainability. When it comes to business travel, I mean, there are a lot of customers are now coming to us, and there will be a new version of our Concur platform next year, where we are allowing our customers to track and trace the carbon footprint of their business travel, to offset carbon credits. So we will also invite utility energy providers to this platform, and to really make sure that once you are back with business travel, that you do it, but you do it again in a more sustainable way. And one fantastic example, not only in the B2B, we have with B2C, we are now a big partner of the next Coldplay tour. And so Coldplay also said, we want to have a sustainable tool, we want to use Concur, and we want to allow everyone who's coming to our concert that they realize what is the most sustainable way to travel, and how can I offset my carbon footprint? And I guess this is the future of business travel, yeah. And
so that's the sustainability angle on pop music and on business travel. Well, what about other sustainability products where technology can help with that then, Christian? Because I know that's also something you're working on, allowing customers to measure the carbon footprint of products. I know that certainly in the autos industry, you've enabled some businesses to come together to try to do this. How significant a change is that?
Yeah, what we are now connecting as part of our strategy, you mentioned it, the business network. Now that we completely digitize the supply chain of the automotive industry, we can not only make sure that we have track and trace and real-time visibility, we can also measure the carbon footprint, not only in the factory of a car manufacturer, but also all the way down to the raw material. Now, suddenly, you understand how big the carbon footprint is of an electric car. That's very important, because then you can do something about that. And as we are running many factories, many logistic providers all over the world, we are now connecting them not only in the automotive space to give them the visibility, and then again use other technology to also then hopefully produce, deliver, and sell in a more sustainable way.
Let me ask you also, while I have you, Christian, about the work from home dynamic and return to office and that conversation that's come so far in 2021. What is SAP expecting of its staff right now? Where do you think this will settle?
Yeah, and in Germany, because we are clearly now in the fourth wave of the virus, of the pandemic, we actually asked our people to, as far as possible, work from home. In other countries, we already reopened the offices. But for us, it's very important that we allow our employees also in the future hybrid work. They have to choose, and they know best what is good for SAP, what is good for our customers, to work flexibly either from home or from the office. And sometimes you have to be in the office. When you code, when you engineer software, you have to be there. Important it is that we have the technology, that we equip our people to do both, that we have great collaboration tools, that we have great software. And there, of course, using our own technology is also just a great showcase how companies will work in the future. And I'm convinced it will be hybrid.
I wonder what your employees want from that conversation, Christian. Does it very much depend on on their life position or the job description they do? What kind of conversations do you have there? And how tight is the labour market? I'm sure those two things rub up against each other.
Yeah, absolutely, Anna. So they love our pledge to flexibility, because people, having families, sometimes they need this more flexibility. Sometimes you have to work from home when the kindergarten is closed. You have no choice, or you actually have long commutes in certain parts of the world. The traffic is really bad. So it's better than sometimes to stay at home, or you are working on something where it's actually good to be at home. And in other cases, it's good to be together as a team, and we are giving our customers, our employees, we are giving them the responsibility to make their own decisions. And we are giving this pledge to flexibility, and they very much like it. And we clearly also see this as a benefit for recruiting and attracting new talents for SAP.
Christian, thank you very much. Thanks for spending time with us. Christian Klein, the CEO of SAP.
Thank you, Anna.